Okay, are we ready to begin?
I believe we are ready.
All right, I'd like to bring the meeting to order and ask that roll be called, please.
Bluth,
Here.
Disharum,
Here.
Henry,
Anne?
Ann, are you here? Wave,
And
Hello.
hi.
Hello.
Holthauser,
Here.
Humbles,
Here.
Wagenbach,
Here.
Wisdom.
Here.
All right, I'd like to ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll just go ahead and say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America.
and
to
to
the republic for which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
Republic.
one
which
nation,
stands,
nation,
one
under
nation,
God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible.
with liberty
liberty and
for all.
justice for all.
The board will now move on to the public participation portion of the meeting. Dr. Dearman will begin with the superintendent's report. Dr. Dearman?
Yes, thumbs up if you can hear me, just to make sure. Good, thank you. Today, this morning, Damon and I sat in on two meetings, one a statewide meeting and then our local or regional office of education meeting. And just trying to gather information and share thoughts and ideas. And out of the statewide meeting this morning, that was through Forecast 5 Analytics, and they had several state officials, one of which was Dr. Brent Clark, who is president of IASA, sharing some of his thoughts and answering some questions. Now, this is not set in stone. These are just his opinions. So again, weigh that in mind. In his opinion, he does not think school is going to open by the end of the year. If you look at the momentum across the country, many states are already calling it. Illinois has been a little more systematic in their approach, doing 2 and 3 week closures at a time. But according to him, a public safety protocol that has to be meticulous and will have to be developed with safety procedures in place. Would have to be developed, and with the data that's out there right now, it just seems unlikely in his opinion. Question was about summer school and his thoughts on that. Again, many of the same thoughts as far as where we're currently at and the public safety concern with that. He said, in his opinion, maybe in late July, there might be an opportunity to do summer school. They might open it by then, and it would butt up with the start of school in mid-August. That's just his opinion again, but it's just, he's a statewide official and just getting his opinion. Some of the data that was shared, 70% of the schools in the survey that went out, which I filled out for our school district, 70% of schools in the state were not ready for internet learning, either because of lack of broadband service or a lack of a device. Now, luckily, we were in a position that we could do so, but 70% of the schools in the state were not. As far as this year's funding goes, this year's money should not be impacted, but delayed because of cash flow issues. I think we've already kind of dealt with that a little bit and had some information at our last meeting concerning property taxes and things of that nature. But the cash flow should be coming, because everything's always a year in arrears with school funding, but it could be delayed because of cash flow. Another thing that he shared is the $150 billion federal stimulus package. Illinois' share is about $6 million of that. If you listen to Governor Pritzker's announcement, he was predicting Illinois' state loss for this year to be between $5 and $8 billion. So depending on where we fall within that range, and if the stimulus package comes through as it's being touted right now, and we get our $6 billion share, that should help fill some of that hole, but again, still an unknown. Time will tell. And if the federal funds do come through, for those that have been around a while, the 2008 Great Recession, there was a federal stimulus package, then the ERA funds. I'm guessing it will be similar, and several of those people thought it'd be similar to that yet again. I believe that's all I have for now. I think the rest of it we can probably get to later, so I will turn it back to you, Dr. Humbles.
Bing, you gotta get off your computer. Okay, my computer keeps glitching. You keep going in and out. Is anyone else having those?
I wasn't, no.
I got kicked out and had to get back in.
I'm okay for the moment.
Bing, can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound fine, Dr. Humbles.
Please, I'm sorry. Okay. Well, I don't know. Your voice is reverberating, and I've asked my daughter to get off her computer because she's still doing homework. So,
Abby's going in and out on me.
Yeah, me too.
maybe I should try to join on my phone again.
While we're waiting for Abby to possibly try and join audio with her phone, the next item on there is public participation, and I've had no one contact me with anything to be shared, so there is no public participation information from my end at this point, so we'll be ready to move into discussion items. I just admitted Abby back in with her phone, so she should be coming back on.
Can you hear me?
Yep, Abby, you're good. And I went ahead and mentioned while you were away that I had no contact from anyone wanting anything in public participation. So we're ready to move on to information discussion items.
Okay, wonderful. I'm asking my daughter to get off the internet because I'm having some connectivity problems here. She's still doing homework, so but if I've got you on the phone, I think she's fine to go. So we'll just go ahead. We're on information discussion then?
That is correct, and you sound just fine now. So I'm not getting any of the cutting in and out like I was before. I think you're fine.
Right, okay, thank you. The school activity accounts report is included in the packet. Do we have any questions?
None for me.
Next, Dr. Dearman will present information regarding summer school. Dr. Dearman, I know you just spoke about that, so did you need to speak again?
No, not really. It was interesting in our ROE meeting, there's 25 individuals, different superintendents and directors from all over the Peoria area. And that exact question came up. Someone asked me, what are others doing for summer school? And there was that response right there, silence. No one had an answer. Everybody's kind of waiting to see what's going to happen April 30th, after April 30th, and then we'll develop plans from there. So no one in the area has a definitive plan really because you can't. So we'll certainly take that into consideration. And once we know the direction we're going to go, develop something, but we're just kind of in limbo right now until we get information about April 30th.
I had a question. Would there be possibility of online summer school if there's not, classrooms, summer school?
Yeah, Scott Adrian sent me some information today about some of the plans they've developed. So we've got, I think he gave me 3 different scenarios that he's looking at. And those are not just high school. I mean, those could be adapted to various different levels. So that was one of the considerations. So there's several different options there. But yes, that is one of them.
Any other questions regarding summer school?
I was wondering too, yeah, I have a question.
Okay,
Can you hear me?
When you speak, if you're not on video, if you could
Yeah.
just please identify yourself, that'd be great. Thank you.
Hey, this is Karen. Did somebody just put me on video? Sorry. Okay, yeah, this is Karen Disharoon. My question is, I know that the bus drivers are not providing regular bus service right now. I was wondering, is there a potential that we could, instead of having since the bus drivers aren't driving now, have them drive for a summer school if we're able to have that in, midsummer?
If we decide to
Did you
provide
hear?
transportation, yes, we could employ bus drivers to bus the students.
But I was saying kind of as a swap for them not working now.
Are they still being paid now?
Yes, that was part of the executive order that all are being paid, so I don't see the swap as being an option. This would be in addition to or above what they are currently expected to do.
So right now, the executive order says that we have to pay everybody, even if they aren't working, their regular pay.
That is correct.
This is Ann Henry. Is that through April 30? Is that what the executive order is?
Yes, that is correct.
Oh, okay. So there would be the option maybe of a swap for May with July.
A swap for, if we're back in school in May, I'm not sure what you're saying we would swap. They'd be driving the regular routes.
Oh, right. Okay. I'm just assuming that we would be out. But you're saying if we're not out, the executive order might be extended with the same implications.
I don't see the implications of paying people changing. That was in place when the first order was given, and then it was continued when it was extended to April 30th, and I don't see that changing if it's extended again.
Okay.
Any other
And is
questions?
there any way to easily determine what the cost would be to just, is there a way, this is Karen, to determine how much it would cost to provide bus transportation for summer school for, a 3-week period or whatever it is? Some sort of an estimate?
Hey, it's Damon. Yeah, we can certainly do that. I believe we have provided some bus transportation for our title school summer programs in the past. But yeah, we can certainly come up with an estimate. We'll work with the principals and see exactly what the schedule is that they're thinking about.
Hey, this is Cheryl Bluth. Hey, just wondering, I understood Karen's initial question was, we've been paying bus drivers that weren't working, and so could we have them do summer school without paying them for transportation? And that's not an option because that was an executive order. But so then what's the goal that you're thinking, Karen, for summer school to provide transportation? I
just think that some people are limited. Yeah, I think some people are limited in not being able to do summer school because they don't have access to transportation. And if we offer summer school, ideally, we would be able to offer transportation so that there'd be more equal opportunity to access it.
Okay, gotcha. Just wanted to see where you were thinking on that.
Okay, any further questions about summer school before we move on to district office building update? Mr. Wisdom.
Well,
And Mrs. Holzhaus.
Yeah, thank you.
Teresa?
Yes, it's Teresa. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I just wanted to give everyone an update. Mike and I have been working very closely with Pete, Tom, and the team. I believe probably most of you have went by the site. The final grade was completed the first week in April. Definitely a much different view now than when the house was there. So where we're at today is Mike and I are working very closely with them on the budget numbers. We're still tweaking all of that. So I'm hoping by the next board meeting, I'll have a presentation for everyone as well as photos, because I'm all about before and after photos. So are there any questions, or Mike, do you want to add anything?
No, I think you've covered it. We're working hard to have two goals we're trying to reach. This is a front door to the school district, so it's got to be something that's quite presentable, but at the same time, using taxpayers' money for it. And so we fully intend to make sure that it's affordable, and we're not doing anything excessive. And we're still working on that. We're working with the team and pretty confident that we're going to get there.
Well, thank you both. I'm so pleased and I appreciate all the work you guys have put in. I'm just so impressed with Mrs. Holzhauser and Mr. Wisdom's efforts and your thoroughness with this project. And I just want to say thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Abby.
Yeah, thanks, Abby.
Okay. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments for the district office? Okay, very good. Acceleration policy, information regarding the updated acceleration policies in the board packet. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Middle school world language course. Information regarding the middle school world language course changes is included in the board packet. Do we have any questions? Can
I
everyone?
had some questions about that.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Karen. Can you hear? Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
I had asked some questions before. I guess one of the questions is regarding the low numbers at the high school. Is Mr. Adrian on?
No, Mr. Andrews is on though.
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't see that. Okay, Matt. Just wondered, what is the policy at the high school in terms of general classes when we get to, what number is it that we get to when it's no longer, we drop a class?
Yeah, typically that magic number that we look for is about 15, with the exception sometimes of the AP numbers. And so what I'm guessing you're referring to is in some of those numbers they were either low teens, low tens, or perhaps single digit. And those classes are actually taught concurrently. So you might have like a French 3 and a French 3 AP that are being taught at the same time. So we're still able to offer those to those students. What Lawrence Scranton does, and Justin Rose, they do a great job balancing that. And they just make sure that kids are aware of, based on the common lesson, what the expectation is for those in the regular level and then those in the pre-AP class.
Oh, okay. So for which ones of those that you provided us the numbers for, or how many of them are combined?
So any of those that are going to be below that 15 will be taught concurrently. They've always been very tight about that for as long as I've been in the district, and so they've always just had those conversations with Lauren for the past decade, and making sure that she was comfortable teaching that concurrently, because otherwise it would mean closing that class. And Lauren and Justin have always been of the mindset that they're willing to do what they need to so that kids can get the classes they would like.
Okay. I guess my next question is just on providing world language and more cultural education as opposed to, unless I hear something differently, would be to have alternating French and Spanish, or choices of taking French and Spanish at the 7th and 8th grade, because I would think that would increase the likelihood of success on AP tests and fluency. So just wondering, what others thought of that, and I don't know, Matt, if you have any comments on a preference for that.
Yeah, and does anyone else have any comments first, I guess?
I did. Is this like a mini course, like for 8 weeks, or is this the entire semester or entire year?
These are the first. These are the Explore classes. So these are the 9-week courses that they take. So each quarter, their Explore class changes. And so these proposed changes would be just like they are now. It's just they would have World Language 1 as a 6th grader for a quarter. And then after that quarter was over, they'd go to FACS or to their SEL, the social emotional class they have, or art. And then the same thing with 7th grade being World Language 2, 9 weeks. And then for 8th grade, to make sure that we're continuing to expose students to both languages, so they have that exposure to make an informed decision moving into high school if they don't take French 1 or Spanish 1 pre-AP as an 8th grader, they still have that world language exposure. And both the culture as well as the very obvious language component would be part of that.
So they're only getting one, are they only this is Karen again, are they only getting 1/4 of French or Spanish 6th and 7th grade?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I would be in favor of, first of all, increasing that, but I know we're not talking about that now. I think that 1/4 is too short for the continuity of learning that language, and I think it's better to provide greater continuity since we're offering it K through 5. I would think a minimum of two quarters would be better in terms of learning the language. But then secondly, I would not be supportive of kind of watering that down and making it 1/4 of both, because then I feel like they're getting really just an 1/8 of Spanish or an 1/8 of a year of French.
Sure, and I definitely understand that perspective, and I don't think the foreign language teachers at the high school would disagree with increasing that. It just comes with some scheduling conflicts then at the middle school, which is why it's always been traditionally offered as a quarter class. Any other?
Are the scheduling conflicts because you don't have enough Spanish teachers to cover for the middle school? Because I think you have a lot more Spanish than French.
Sure. So there would be an increase in staffing need. Absolutely, you are correct. There would also then just be a conflict in terms of where it would be placed in the schedule. If we were looking to increase it anymore, then we'd have to talk about which Explore classes we would get rid of. Would we offer an option to all middle school students? Currently, we don't do that, particularly at the 6th grade level, because we want them to have exposure to the different offerings that the middle school has. So then when they move into their 7th and 8th grade and those options increase, they at least have had that exposure, and so they can make a more informed decision based on what their interests have otherwise shown that is agreeable to them. And so there's only just one Explore hour devoted to each student's schedule, so that's where that scheduling conflict would come in. Not saying it's impossible, it's just with how things currently are would necessitate some analysis of what that looks like.
I too would be in favor, this is Abby, I too would be in favor of offering more Spanish. I know the kids take it ever since kindergarten, but I also know that scheduling is an issue. But I think at one time we were really looking for Spanish teachers, and I don't know if we actually found enough Spanish teachers, or if because we couldn't find them, we pared down the Spanish offering. But I also would be in favor of including a little bit more Spanish, if at all possible.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we luckily did find 2 really amazing Spanish teachers at the last second the year before last. It was definitely a rare find. We went almost the whole summer not knowing what we were going to do with elementary Spanish, but we luckily did. So very thankful for them.
All right, anyone else on the middle school world language course? Very good. Regular board meeting dates. Information about the regular board meeting dates for 2020, 2021 are included in the board packet. I noticed that most of them are on the scheduled week except for one. I'm not sure if the levy will require us to change that meeting, Dr. Dearman, or do we not know yet?
Hey, Abby, it's Damon. We already accounted for that for the budget. And I think we're okay on the levy, but we'll double check that one to make sure as well.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? No other questions? Okay, ESL coordinator and language specialist. Information regarding these 2 positions are included in the board packet. Are there any questions?
It's actually one position.
Oh, I'm sorry. ESL coordinator and language specialist combined. I was skipping to the transition specialist, which is next. So we'll just stick with that one there. I'm sorry. The ESL coordinator and the language specialist.
This is Tim. I guess I got a problem if we keep adding staff. I don't know if we can't stretch what we have now, but I don't think we can keep hiring more people.
It's actually, we have Sarah Urbank in the position as a coordinator for 25% of the day. However, with the numbers of ESL growing, we're either going to have to, hire an ESL teacher. We've hired aides randomly throughout the year, one for Ridgeview and one for the middle school, because we've had to pull ESL staff to place them. I had my middle school ESL teacher that was pulled to go to Wilder Waite, and then by the middle of the year, she had to go to Ridgeview later in the day because Ridgeview's numbers increased, and then we hired an aide to cover. So it's one of those, we're trying to bandage staffing to cover ESL students' needs because our numbers are increasing. So if moving Sarah to 100% as a coordinator and a language specialist, then we would replace her at Wilder Waite, kind of filling in so that we have all of the ESL students' needs met.
So basically, if I'm hearing you correctly, we have to do this based on state guidelines due to the increase in numbers. There's been enough increase in ESL numbers to account for the 75% of the position being added?
Yes, that's correct. And also I worked with Matt Andrews on this, looking at budgets and where we can fill in some of the covering costs using some Title I funds and using some IDEA funding for the position to cover some of the special ed with ESL that she would be doing. She would be in all 8 buildings helping staff. We had Cindy Dolman coming in this year to do PD. We wouldn't have her coming back because we would look at Dr. Urbank, who is very knowledgeable in this area, to helping our staff in all 8 buildings and giving them the support they need to work with newcomers that come in with no language, and just all of these, student needs that keep increasing. So I hope that helps a little bit.
So are you saying this is budget neutral?
It's budget neutral, yes.
So no additional cost to the budget, okay?
Right, we would be looking at grants to cover the cost.
Any other questions about this position?
Abby, this is Teresa. I have a question, just so I
Sure.
understand. You said it's budget neutral, but you just said that we would have to look at grants to cover the cost.
Yes, we have grant money with Title I and IDEA. We used Title I funds to bring Cindy in this year. We would not be having her in next year. And then looking at some of the IDEA to offset the cost.
So this is money we already get. This is not additional money we're hoping to get or we're wanting to get. I believe that's what she's saying,
Correct.
Teresa.
Correct.
Okay.
I looked at that with Alyssa, and we received back at the beginning of the month the initial allotment letter from ISB, and so we made sure to make sure that was part of our preliminary budget talks.
This is Mike.
Very
With,
good.
so is that an ongoing funding source we can count on from year to year, or is that like for 1 year and then we hope to get it the next year, or is it ongoing?
It's ongoing.
Thank you.
All right. If there are no more questions, we'll move on to the next item is transitional specialist. Information is in the packet regarding the transition specialist. Do we have any questions about this position? Excuse me.
This is Karen. I just wanted to confirm, I know I asked this in email, but I get these 2 positions mixed up. Is this one also the one that's going to be funded through federal funding and not local property tax fund?
So this position would be for our transition students that are 18 to 22 that are not going to college. They stay either in the Pathways program or they're working towards job training. STEP is through the Department of Human Resources, the rehabilitation section. So the STEP contract currently goes to SEPCO. So they use our STEP money that they receive to purchase curriculum for any of the SEPCO schools. Currently, I've been working with Dr. Adrian and the Department of Human Services. We sat down and met and discussed having our own STEP contract. I met with them 2 years ago and then again this year to finalize that. And the contract states we would get so much money for each student that's working and has an outcome of that job training. So with that money, it would kind of flow into the transition program and with pathways and a transition specialist. And I'm looking to grow this program. When I started as a director 3 years ago, that was one of my goals, to really work at the pathways program in the transition. We have so many students that aren't going to college, but we're not giving them the proper support to help with job training, and this would help do that. So the STEP contract, yes, would be federal money that would come back to the district and not to SEPCO because we would carry our own contract. Does that help a little bit?
Yes, so basically, is this budget neutral as well?
A full.
Yes, it's budget neutral and it could fluctuate. I mean, we could get $40,000, we could get $50,000, we could get $35,000. It could fluctuate depending on outcomes and then the students that we're helping. But in that, I can always amend my IDEA grant, which is a federal special ed grant because these students would be special ed students. So I could always offset my IDEA grant if we're not getting, you know, if we get $35,000, I can amend my IDA grant all the way up to the end of May to help make that budget neutral.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, this is Mike Wisdom. Alyssa, that's one of the things that I've been hopefully pushing hard is to try to reach those students that aren't planning on going to college and training them for other types of occupations that'll be fulfilling. And so I applaud this program, and I do want to be supportive of it. Question for Damon. Damon, you're working on 1, 2, 3 year projections for us as a board, so we know where we sit, which I don't currently right now with what's happening. I don't feel like I have a good handle on where we're going to be come budget time. How soon do you think you'll be able to have some projections for us for 1, 2, and 3 years out?
Yeah, my plan is at the June board meeting to have our tentative budget. The original plan was to do that in July, but I think with everything that's happening, we probably need to bump that up a month. So in the June board meeting, we can start that tentative budget process. It'll be informational at that point in time, and we'll work on the 3-year. We're going to work on a 3-year plan at that time as well. The reason why I say June, Mike, is as Dr. Dearman and I sat in on the webinars today, there's just so much unknown, obviously at this point in time. So as we get closer to the end of this fiscal year, I think that'll help us get a better idea of where we're going to be starting the next, and then we'll project a couple of years down the road as well. But we just have to keep in mind we're getting so many different variables about what people think are going to happen financially, and hopefully, you know, we get a couple more months down the road and we'll get a little bit better picture of what the future might look like.
Well, the University of Illinois financial experts put out a prediction of long term. I think it was a 3 or maybe it was a 4-year projection of anywhere from 10 to 28 billion dollar impact. So I mean, that's a huge range. And even before COVID-19 even was talked about, a lot of the evidence-based funding money that we were looking at has changed 2 years ago was contingent upon Governor Pritzker's passing of the graduated income tax. So was it going to be 200 million, 300 million, or 350 million? Those were variables that were in play before COVID-19. Then you throw that into the mix. So I expect Damon, I'm sure he'll put some projections together, but again, there's a lot of variables in play, and even locally, we don't know the impact of what's happening currently and what that's going to do to our local economy. So there will be fluctuation, but he can certainly put together some scenarios and at least give some kind of projection of what he thinks is going to be happening, and I'll work with him on that as well.
Yeah,
I was wondering.
Let me finish this, Mike Wisdom. That's 2 months from now. I can assure you that there are probably going to be some issues on the budget, on the agendas coming up in those 2 months that have dollar figures attached to them. Everyone was online last week when we so strenuously looked at the summer projects. the sooner we can get those projections so we have a feel for where we are, the sooner we're going to be able to give answers on some of those requests. So if there's any way to expedite that between now and June, I would certainly encourage you to do that, okay?
Yeah, well, this is Damon again. We're working on it, Mike. This is the time of the year that we're getting into the meat of the budget anyway. And then of course, this all coronavirus certainly messes up a lot of that. But this is the time, so we're working through, obviously the education fund is the biggest one in volume and the most, one that's going to come into play the most with as far as funding. So we're in the process of doing that now, and I will continue to share information. That's why I've been sent out some information to you guys last Friday on where we've been, you know, different things like that. So we'll continue to share that out as we go through the process for sure.
Damon, I have a question for you. This is Abby. I know when I started building budgets, we would get our general state aid information usually in the spring. And then as I continued my tenure, oftentimes we wouldn't even get that information until before August. Sometimes we'd have to start school not knowing what our budget numbers would be. So you're waiting on these numbers from the state, and it's very frustrating. And I know, you know, and it might be a little bit different in the business field, but you know, it would be nice to have those projections, but I do understand how difficult it is. Now with this new evidence-based funding, are they giving you information sooner than they did in the recent past, or is it also delayed just like it was with the general state aid?
Hey, Abby, it's Damon, and I appreciate that. Those are some really good points. The EBF funding, they've gotten better about getting that information to us. The problem now, of course, this year, everything is just in flux. One of the things they talked a lot about in today's presentation, and it gets very confusing because what they're telling us is there's all kinds of different stipulations that come into play with the EBF funding. There's triggers that happen. For example, one of the things they're saying is, okay, so we're hoping that everybody stays flat. So the base funding minimum that you're supposed to have that you're going to get, you're probably not going to get any new tier distributions of money. But then there's triggers within when they pass the EBF that if for some reason they can't meet the evidence, the base funding minimum, then different things happen. So we're a tier 2 school. Tier 1 would be school districts that are more in need of state funding. Tiers 3 and 4, those have less need of state funding. So there's some triggers set up that if they can't meet the base funding minimum, tiers 3 and 4, basically their money goes away, and it kind of goes into this chain reaction. My concern, it kind of to your point, Abby, my concern is it's going to be further down the road before we're going to know exactly what's going on. One of the things that came up today as well was there was a question about PPRT money. And I think the question was, is there any way that we can find out from the Illinois Department of Revenue what those estimates are? Because we don't get those estimates sometimes till August or September, and that's when we're trying to approve a budget. And they said, unfortunately, it's probably going to be the exact opposite, and they're probably going to be more delayed in being able to give out those PPRT estimates. So we're going to give out some different scenarios, and we just have to all know that it's based on guesses at this point in time, and we'll continue to listen to the experts and hear what they have to say. But yes, I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Well, I guess, you know, with that, you know, with the corona and this funding, and it's definitely going to impact our budgets and the ability for them to give us any good numbers soon. With that information, I guess we need to try to be as conservative as we can and stay within our budget and try not to over budget. But I appreciate that information. Any other comments or questions from anyone?
Yes, this is Karen. I have a request, and that is, you know, for our next board meeting or the following one, to start looking at some options in terms of spending reductions for the next year, because I think as our EAV continues to drop, And as we have, these COVID issues, not only with state funding, but also with local property tax dollars, I don't think that situation is going to get better. I think it will probably get worse. So I would like to see from the administration some options for spending reductions. I don't know the amount, but just some options, because I don't want to continue deficit spending.
Yep, I agree with that, and it may not be just a small cut. We need a scenario for a huge cut, a medium cut, and a light cut.
That was that Tim?
Yes, sorry.
That's okay.
This is
Anyone-
Ann, and Karen cut out at one point, but are we asking for a certain percentage cut so that they can have a little more direction of what we're asking for?
No,
I believe she suggested different scenarios.
Right. I don't know what the magic number is, because I don't know what the deficit is going to be. And I know it's only a prediction at this point anyway, but I think we need to start where, maybe it's 500,000, $1 million, I don't know, 5%. I know suggestions on what that amount would be, but I think we have to start looking. Whereas before, when we started deficit spending about 5 years ago, the economy and the jobs came back. This time, I don't see that happening. I think that the jobs that Caterpillar moved to Arizona and to Chicago are not going to be returning. And that was a big part of our, local economy. There could be some, minor improvements in the high industry and the medical community, but, I think they're struggling now at this point too. So I think we ought to be better prepared, in case we're going to see structural deficit spending for a number of years.
Anyone else have any contribution?
Abby, this is Teresa.
Thank you.
I agree with Karen, and I apologize. I must have a bad internet connection. I don't hear every word. But absolutely, we need to start making that list, because in the event we have to pull triggers, we need to know which triggers to pull, and we need to have that list prioritized. So I completely agree. How much that should be, I would just, as Karen said, start that list and see where we're at.
Thank you, Teresa. Anyone else before we move on?
Yeah, this again points to the need for those projections. We know there'll be guesstimates, but frankly, I would take guesstimates right now because I'm flying blind otherwise. So the sooner we can see where we may be, the sooner we'll have an idea of what we need to do. Okay, thank you.
Yep, we are working on it.
I agree.
Okay, very good. This concludes the information discussion items. The board will now move on to consent agenda. Are there any questions or discussions regarding items that were on the consent agenda?
The summer projects, I'm sorry, the facility agreement is on there, correct?
Yes.
I just wanted to talk about this. We're still offering, a number of groups our facilities for free. I know it's a tough time, but we just spent, a lot of money on the pool. Does anybody else have any interest in at least reaching out to the Dolphins who are using our facility, seeing if they have an interest in contributing?
I would be okay with that. And when I saw the email that they spent $10,000, wasn't recently, probably, was it?
That was within the last 4 years.
I'm getting the message loud and clear from the board. I worked with the representatives of Dunlop Dolphin on the pool renovation, so I can reach out to those representatives again and start that discussion if that's what the board wishes.
Is that what the board would like Mr. Wisdom to do?
Yes.
Okay. Can we just say simple yes or no and who you are?
Yes, from Tim, but I think you might need to standardize it a little bit on your agreement.
Abby, this is Teresa.
Yes.
I can understand the principle, I understand, Karen, what you're thinking there and the use of the pool. I would be hesitant at this time. I know that it's very expensive for the swimmers. They put a lot of their own money into this. And I don't know, I believe if I understand correctly, they pay for the coaches and everything. And we have an outstanding swimming team. I think we all know that. So I would be hesitant, especially in the environment that we're in today, because to put this out there at this time. Just my thoughts.
Just a clarification, they don't pay for our coaches. They just, the Dunlap Dolphins coaches. Right. They're separate club. It's not affiliated with the school. Okay, I just want to make sure.
Anyone else?
This is Anne. One thing I noticed with the contract was that some groups, we would pay for our staff to help, and on other ones we wouldn't. And so for me, it's not very clear with the contract who pays and who doesn't, and maybe the numbers are so small that it doesn't matter. I just don't know if there's real consensus on how it's done.
Is Dr. Dearman on here?
Yes, I'm here.
Could you please address that? Or I know that on the weekends, if there's not a custodian present, they do have to pay to cover that custodian. I know that's pretty standard.
That is correct. And Katie responded, and I thought I forwarded that answer to everyone as far as what people are charged, when they're charged. So yes, generally it revolves around the fact that if we have to have a custodian come in and there's a cost, they're expected to cover that cost.
Well, I don't know. I know that when we were doing the renovations to the pool, this is Abby again, the dolphin population said that they indeed would be willing to start paying. So, I don't know if right now is the time to do it, but I think that, we can't continue to support every club, but they are feeding our swimmers to the swimming program. So I do think we're going to need to start being creative about how we utilize our resources and how we tighten our belts. So, it may be something we might want to put on that list to prioritize of things that we could do to increase a little revenue. Also have another list of prioritized what things that, we could do to maybe cut a little spending. So any other comments?
I guess the other thing
to take
I'd
into
like to
consideration
know
for this is that Troy, probably a good 4 hours of his day is spent primarily with care for the pool. Now, yes, our teams do use it, but the Dolphins use it quite a bit as well, where other groups that come in and use our basketball, Dunlap Rec uses our gyms for different things. That doesn't require, a custodian the next day, to do the type of maintenance that he's doing. So there are additional costs associated with swimming versus other Dunlap Rec programs. And again, Dolphins aren't affiliated with Dunlap Rec to begin with. I think that was already stated.
Yeah, I see
that was going to be my point.
Even in chemical usage, and I can see where there would be an additional cost. So perhaps they could be asked to help pay for some of his time after each meet, and or help with a percentage of paying for pool chemicals. I'm not sure how you'd go about it, but if it's taking additional work on our custodians' behalf, I do think that's something that we could pursue.
Hey, this is Cheryl.
The other question I had was,
go ahead, Karen.
What my only other question, I was going to make the same point Scott, Dr. Dearman did, but also I don't really have a handle on how many months does our school team use it and how many months do the Dolphins use it. And when our school team is not using, what are the costs like per month in terms of electricity? We're heating the pool, we're using the chemicals, we're, wear and tear on the equipment. Is there any way to get sort of an estimate on what it costs in terms of maintenance and equipment, supplies, and utilities. Just
Yeah, I mean,
run the
we had
pool
all that.
every month.
When we were looking at renovating the pool, we gathered a lot of that information as far as, the monthly expenses and things of that nature. Tom could certainly work with Katie and put something together of, what's the season for our swimmers? When do they use it versus those, when they're not in season? We could put that together.
That would be helpful. Cheryl, did
The
you have
only thing we
something to
saw
say?
before was the equipment. Okay.
Go ahead, Karen.
My follow-up is just, I think that before the only information we had was on equipment and when things broke down, I don't think we ever had an analysis of the monthly cost of running the pool. I mean, I could be wrong on that, but I felt like it was more limited to repairs.
Cheryl, did you have something to contribute?
Yeah, hey, yeah, this is Cheryl. I think all these are good questions and it's something to take a look at. And, the monthly cost is, one piece of the puzzle. Wear and tear is another piece. And if, there's some need for contribution that, because of the wear and tear of the Dolphins versus our high school teams, it's worth taking a look at. But if we're trying to claw back money because, we have to circle the wagons because, we might end up in a place where, the deficit, I think we have to look at the numbers, and this is just a small piece of it. So I just think we should get the facts and data before we really go aggressively at that piece of it. So that my only 2 cents on that.
Hey, Cheryl, this is Mike Wisdom. I don't really have any desire to go aggressively at those guys. That's part of the problem in working on that committee is I've become friends with them. And so I don't, but I certainly can have that discussion. And I said, I totally don't believe they would resent having that discussion with us. I do have another question. The Curly Boo Johnson basketball camp is held at Dunlap for boys and girls. It's gotten to be a pretty big thing. Is there any charge for that camp at our facilities? Does anyone know?
To my knowledge, Katie and I spoke about this, and there's a charge to the campers, but we do not, as my understanding has it, charge the Curly Boo camp to use our facilities.
So there's a charge to the people who join the camp. Do we get part of that money, or does that all go to the sponsor?
That goes to the sponsors, my understanding, but I can double check that with Katie, but I'm 99% sure.
That's gotten to be a huge camp, and it definitely is using a lot of our facilities, electricity, power, lighting, et cetera, custodial, no question about it. If we're talking about this subject, that's probably one that we also need to take another look at if that's the right position we should be taking on that one.
Yeah, and we used to have also a volleyball camp that was done, I think, by the coaches, but it wasn't through the school. It was through a private club. I'm not sure what the name of it is, but a brick volleyball club. And I don't know if we charge, but I think that is a moneymaker too for somebody else.
That's CIE Elite. My daughter has actually been involved in that for a few years now, and they hold their camps at Synergy, and now they're going to be over at Louisville Slugger Dome. So to my knowledge, at least at the junior high down level, it's not been at our facilities. And I just talked to Katie, and we do not charge Curly Boo camp.
Well, we probably ought to look at that. I can remember when I was coaching a travel basketball squad when we were younger, we had to rent facilities. And I don't know if there was a distinction with that, but I remember very clearly that we had to ramp it into our fees that we charged to our parents so that we could pay for the hourly usage of the gyms in the district. I do know there's a difference. I mean, Dunlap Rec those are all people that live in the school district, and they're, you know, mostly taxpayers that are putting in dollars into our facilities. But if there are clubs that aren't exactly all taxpayers using our facilities, that's probably something we ought to take a look at.
And that Curly Boo camp is not inexpensive either. So I think they could afford to pay a little bit to the district.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ann.
All right, so I guess we have a little direction here for the administration to pursue information and get back to us. Any other issues with the consent agenda or any other contributions or comments? All right, may I please have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Are we going to wait to see what the answer before we vote, or what?
See what?
Repeat that, please.
Are we going to wait until you have the discussion with the swim? Are we going to wait until Mike has the conversation with the Dolphins before we vote on the new facility agreement?
Do you want to ask to pull that from the consent agenda until we have more information?
Well, I'm just asking the board, does it make sense to do that? I mean, otherwise, then if we approve this, this is for a year, and there won't be a charge. I mean, I don't feel strongly about it. I could go either way. I'm just asking. Mike said he was going to do that, so
Well, I think it's not just
that we approve it this year.
Do you mind this,
Ask for
Carol?
next year.
Can we just go ahead and approve it for this year? I don't think this is the time to ask people to step up and pay extra. But if you disagree, I'm okay with that. But I think we should approve
You
this.
know what, Cheryl, there are several things we've talked about: the basketball camp, the volleyball camp, you know, the Dolphins issue. I don't think it's going to hurt to take this off the agenda and consider it next month. There's no magic rush about this. It's for next year. So, Karen, if you feel like it ought to be pulled off.
I'm fine just starting the discussion with the swim club for next year, maybe, because I do think it is a hard time. I mean, we have a lot of people who are getting reduced pay and, you know, getting their job furloughed for a while. So I'm fine in holding this and approving them today. I just wanted to ask that question since you had offered to speak with them. I just wanted to get the timing down, but I'm fine with approving it.
All right, I'll move to approve
Let's do it.
the consent agenda as presented.
Any second?
Second.
Okay, that was Karen. Roll call vote.
Yes.
Okay, roll call vote.
Wisdom,
Yes.
Disharoon,
Yes.
Henry,
Aye.
Olshauser,
Aye.
Humbles,
Aye.
Wagenbach,
Yes.
Bluth.
Aye.
Motion carried. The board will now move on to the action items. Approval of payment of the bills. Treasurer's report, district investment report are included in the board packet. Do we have any questions? May I have a motion to approve payment of the bills?
I move to approve payment of the bills in the amount of $3,825,907.90 as presented.
Thank you, Mrs. Holzhauser. May I have another second?
Second is Wisdom.
Mr. Wisdom. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Olshauser,
Aye.
Wisdom,
Aye.
Bluth,
Aye.
Disharoon,
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Humbles,
Aye.
Wagenbach.
Aye.
Motion carried. Approval of staffing requests for the 2020-2021 school year is included in the board packet. Are there any questions? May I please have a motion to approve
I have a
staffing
question,
requests?
Karen.
Okay, Karen.
I have a question. The question is, are we approving the required positions, or are we approving both required and potential from the presentation?
I'm hoping it's the potential. Is that correct, Dr. Dearman?
I'm sorry, the question cut out.
She wants to know, are we approving those that we know we need, or are we approving those that are in case we get more students?
No, these are just the required positions for now.
Okay, just for now then, Karen.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping, because I would rather see if we need those additional positions in the future, that be brought before the board. So I was hoping it was just the required ones. Thank you.
You're welcome.
May I have a motion? Okay, this is Abby. I move to approve the staffing request for the 2020-2021 school year as presented. May I have a second, please?
Abby, wait, Abby, before you finish that, can you clarify that that's for the required staffing positions?
I move to approve the required staffing positions for the 2020-2021 school year as presented. May I have a second?
Second.
Who was that?
That's
Ann?
Ann.
Okay, very good. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Humbles,
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Olshauser,
Aye.
Wagenbach,
Aye.
Wisdom,
Aye.
Bluth,
Aye.
Disharum.
Aye.
Very good. Motion carried. Thank you. Approval of Fortress Bank. Information is included in the board packet regarding Fortress Bank liquidity management. Are there any questions?
Abby, this is Teresa. I have a question, and maybe Scott, you can answer this, Dr. Dearman. As I'm looking through this document here, it looks like it's from Troy. Can you tell me exactly how this is going to work?
Sure, I actually have Troy sitting in on the meeting to answer that question directly. Troy, can you chime in, please?
Yeah, and I apologize, my video is not working, but can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir, we can hear you just fine.
Okay, so what I circled back to offer ahead of the time for the district is a little bit of security. Utilizing the cash, any cash liquidity that's sitting around. As you may or may not be aware, the rates have plummeted to near zero on most items, especially in cash positions. What this would do is set a floor for the district in a money market account that would then be it's sent into through Promontory. It's the network we originally talked about when I first met this group a couple months ago. That would then secure any dollars that were put into that liquidity would be all FDIC insured. That account can be, it's a demand account, so it acts just like a regular checking account. It can be the only one we open until later on when we want to open the restricted accounts, or we could go ahead and open all the restricted accounts and fund them all, and they're all going to be protected through the Promontory network. They're all going to have FDIC insurance coverage, and at the same time, they would all have a guaranteed floor through June 30th. Then if the rates go up, if for some reason between now and then the rates would go up, everything goes in favor of the district. If for some reason this is a prolonged event, which probably is likely, then we will continue to reach out to the district and keep a floor in place so that the district is earning more on their liquid cash than they could in any of our surrounding communities or surrounding institutions. And so what we need before I can proceed is I needed to make sure that I have, of course, board approval, and then we can proceed with opening it and getting the proper signers and proper documentation.
Any other comments or questions? May I please have a motion to approve Fortress Bank?
I move to approve Fortress Bank liquidity management as presented.
That was that Mrs. Disharoon?
Yes.
That was Karen. And I'm sorry, I interrupted a little bit late, but just wondering with I'm sorry, because I know everyone's ready to be done, but so with all of this, how does this put us ahead of where we are and by how much? Like what, I know, we were talking about the amount of money per month that maybe we were paying. It could be, $2,400 a year. or, you know, and then we're doing this, but I mean, is this going to help us? And by how much? Comparatively, like, what's the metrics between these two? Like where
that
we are currently and then where we would be if we did this.
Dr. Dearman, I do not have your current liquidity position on your money markets, but my assumption would be, based on where they were prior and where they are now, they're probably somewhere between 0 and 0.10 basis points or 10 basis points. Would that be a fair estimate? Because I did not see them since the COVID-19 event.
That would be a fair assumption. So we're looking in the neighborhood of 25 roughly basis points, Troy, is that correct?
You're looking at 38 basis points?
Well, on top of where we're currently at.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, 25 to 30 basis points.
So if you
depending
take
on
roughly $10 million invested over a year, you're looking at roughly $250,000.
That is correct.
Okay.
You got that, Mrs. Bluth?
Yes.
So right now we're making what, 50,000?
Yes, you'd be making approximate, if my estimate is right, and I have not seen the numbers of the most recent cash positions like I had done when I presented publicly. But I'm assuming based on the way they worked previously and the way they were budgeting or the way they were managing those funds, you're going to be between 0 and 10 basis points. So if you have $10 million today, 10 basis points, you're looking at $100,000. If you have 38 basis points on $10 million, you're looking at $380,000. So the net is the gain. What we are doing different for about 6 clients and potential clients is instituting an artificial floor so that the district is getting a guarantee floor and not to go below that. And we're doing it at a quarter at a time for our premier clients. And it's because of the uncertainty in the environment. But this would be the worst case scenario, would be the 38 basis points for the next 90 days. I would hope that we'd get back to normality, but I can tell you, based on all of our economists and our economic data, this is probably here to stay for 18 to 24 months.
Okay,
Wow.
and approximately what's the average we have that will be invested? I know it's not going to be 10 million, is it?
Your liquid position, if you recall, when we did our original presentation, you run between 4 million and 10 million liquid all the time, and at some point you're up to 16 million. You had some accounts that were sitting 3 and 4 million that were earning less than 10 basis points, even when the rest of the market potentially could have earned you 75 to 100 basis points. So, this again, we are not talking about, if you recall, I really wanted you to separate the liquidity position with your long-term 40-some million dollars of other investments that would be what I would call longer term, which would be managed funds.
Right. Okay, thank you.
I have a question. This is Abby. Now, weren't we told, though, that this is something that has just recently been allowed to happen with schools? Is that correct? So,
well, it was recently, it was always, well, let me back up. It was available through a very high end and paying fees previously, and the district and this where you have your IMRF money and some of your retirement money has been utilizing this product for a while in the wholesale world. It became a retail product only in the last probably 24 to 36 months to become actually available to take it to municipalities, school districts, large individuals. It's very rarely that we do it with individuals unless they have a liquidity of at least $5 million, but it can be done for that.
okay, so it's not like we've been neglecting this for the past 4 or 5
Absolutely not.
years. Right. It's
Absolutely
something
not.
that's just now come available. I just want to make that clear to people that are listening, because we've been
Yes.
talking about trying to do something like this for almost 3 years now. So this new law or change has now allowed us to do that, and so therefore I'm very glad that that's happened.
Yes, and Dr. Dearman has been waiting patiently until I got everything to where I knew I did not want to present this to you even when I had the opportunity to a year ago, because we had internal bugs that I needed to make sure were working so that the sweeps work flawlessly. So everything, I knew everything was working well. And that's when I came back and offered it to Dr. Dearman.
Very good. Thank you so much. Do we have any other questions or comments? Could we please have a motion?
I think Karen did.
Well, I think it was.
Oh, yeah, I move to approve Fortress Bank liquidity management as presented.
And this is
And
Tim,
then-
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you,
I mean,
Mr.
this is Mike
Wagenbach.
Wisdom. I have a relationship with Fortress Bank, and I don't know if it's required or not, but out of caution, I think I need to abstain from this vote in this discussion. So I'll be.
No problem. Roll call vote, please.
Disharoon,
Aye.
Wagenbach,
Aye.
Bluth,
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Olshauser,
Aye.
Humbles.
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you. 2000 information is included in the board packet regarding the 2020-2021 IESA membership and activity dues and registration. Are there any questions? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the IESA membership?
I move to approve the 2020-21 IESA membership and activity dues and registration as presented.
Okay, that was Mr. Wisdom. May I have a second?
Second, Teresa.
Okay, Mrs. Holt, Ms. Holzhauser, any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Wisdom,
Aye.
Olshauser,
Aye.
Humbles,
Aye.
Wagenbach,
Aye.
Bluth,
Aye.
Disharoon,
Aye.
Henry.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you, Debbie. Information regarding middle school handbooks is included in the board packet. Are there any questions?
I have, this is Anne. When we had talked about this with the staff, my understanding was that because they hadn't worked out all the questions regarding grading and what else was in there? There were some other things as well, but it was grading and homework, that they were going to discuss that, and then that would be later put on the website so that they could go ahead and print now, because it's important for them to get that done to get those books out. That was not included in here, so we need to add that.
Are you talking about the statement regarding further information and grading will be provided at a later time? Is that, I remember us talking about that at the board.
Yes.
Is that what you're talking?
Yes.
Yeah, Karen, we first talked about it at the committee level, and then we talked about it at the board level when it was not put in the draft. And I think we agreed at our last meeting that we would put it in some line, something to the effect of, we are currently updating policies regarding homework credit, grading, and remediation. And please refer to the website for those policies.
That is correct. We will have a language that states that those items will be available on the website once completed.
Yep, and that's currently in there on page 15 under remediation.
Well, it just says that to see the syllabus is what I'm seeing. And a syllabus is not on the website that everyone can see. That would be like a teacher. So my understanding is the website that we all could see it.
That would be each individual teacher's Canvas page, which all students and parents do have access to.
Is there a problem with putting that in the handbook as they discussed earlier, Matt?
Oh, no, yeah, we can always add that for sure. Mm-hmm.
I think that would
And I
be,
guess I would not be, I mean, I would rather not have the language that's in there now that says for remediation procedures, please see
I'm
the
sorry.
syllabi, because that seems to leave it up to individual procedures by individual teachers, which adds to confusion. So I would like to see that removed, and in place of it, the language that says there's being a review done by, the administrator, it's currently being reviewed. Please see the website for those updated policies.
So like for where it says remediation, I think that should be struck out. It should be replaced with something along the lines of homework grading and remediation policies. That Dunlap Valley and Dunlap Middle are in the process of updating their policies regarding homework credit, grading, and remediation to improve students' skills, knowledge, and mastery of content area. Please see the DVMS and DMS public accessible websites for these changes.
Not to,
Well,
not to
and-
ask you to repeat all that, Ann, but is that in the form of a motion?
I can put it in the form of a motion.
I think you can make the motion and include that, and then you could also email that information to Dr. Dearman and Mr. Andrews to be sure that it gets put in there. Was that acceptable, Dr. Dearman?
Yeah, that's fine. We can do that.
All right then. So would you like to make that motion, Mrs. Henry?
Yes, I make the motion to strike on page 87 of the board book, to strike remediation and should I just read it, what I want to strike out?
Yes.
To strike remediation, and then remediation is available to students at Dunlap Valley and Dunlap Middle School who would like to improve their skills, knowledge, and mastery of a content area. For remediation procedures, please see course syllabi instructions. And to replace that with the headline being homework, grading, and remediation policies, Dunlap Valley and Dunlap Middle are in the process of updating their policies regarding homework credit, grading, and remediation to improve students' skills, knowledge, and mastery of content area. Please see the DVMS and DMS public accessible websites for these changes.
Is there a second?
This is Tim, I'll second.
Karen, I'll second that.
Mr. Wagenbaugh beat you to it there, Karen. Any discussion?
Okay.
And then Ann, please send that also to Debbie so she can get that accurately typed in their minutes.
Okay.
Roll call vote, please.
Henry,
Aye.
Wagenbach,
Aye.
Wisdom,
Aye.
Bluth,
Aye.
Disharoon,
Aye.
Holzhauser,
Aye.
Humbles.
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you, Debbie. Information regarding high school handbook is included in the packet. Are there any questions? Could I please have a motion to approve the agreement? This is Abby. I move to approve the high school handbook as presented. Is there a second?
Wisdom, aye. Second.
Very good. Thank you. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Humbles,
Aye.
Wisdom,
Aye.
Bluth,
Aye.
Disharoon,
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Holzhauser,
Aye.
Wagenbach.
Aye.
Motion carried. Approval of summer projects. Information regarding the 2020 summer project is included in the packet. I want to thank our administration, our board, and our
Director of Facilities.
Director of Facilities. Thank you. Tom,
You're
thank
welcome.
you so much for your time and your patience with us as we went through those changes. Are there any questions regarding the summer projects? Could I please have a motion to approve the agreement?
This is Wisdom. I move to approve the 2020 summer projects as presented.
Is there a second?
Wagonbach, second.
Very good. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Wisdom,
Aye.
Wagenbach,
Aye.
Humbles,
Aye.
Holzhauser,
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Disharoon,
Aye.
Bluth.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you very much, everyone. This concludes the action items portion of the meeting. May I please have a motion to adjourn to closed session?
Abby, this is Scott.
Yes, sir.
I don't have anything for a closed session since we just kind of had a pretty extensive one last Wednesday. So unless somebody else has something, I don't have anything for closed.
I believe we do have some requests to discuss some things in closed session. So I think we do need a motion. Also, Debbie, could we move that sentence in this meeting flow that I'm reading to be above the closed session?
Yes, no problem.
Thank you.
You're
May I
welcome.
have a motion?
I'll
This is
move.
Teresa.
Okay.
Go ahead, Teresa.
I move to adjourn to closed session for the following purposes as stated in the Open Meetings Act. The appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, student disciplinary cases, collective negotiating matters, discussion of minutes of meetings lawfully closed, purchase of lease of real property, security procedures, and litigation.
Is there a second?
Second, it's Wisdom.
Mr. Wisdom, very good. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed?
Do we need
All right,
to do a roll call
Hey,
vote?
Abby, it's Scott
Yes.
again.
Yes?
The way this is being done online, I'm gonna have to kick everyone out and
Okay.
then to try
Take
and
a-
start the stream again. Before we jump to close, can we go down to the action items after open sessions, like the consent agenda for human resources and the closed session minutes?
Sure.
And approve those, so I have everything in one stream.
Okay, so we amend that last motion to go to closed session. Could I please have a motion to return? Well, let's see, we're not now in open session again.
Yeah, I'm
Would
sorry,
some-
I should have chimed in beforehand, but I just
Would
thought
someone-
about it.
Would someone like to make a motion to go back into open
I
session?
move to return.
Thank you,
I
Karen.
move
May I have
to
a second?
Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Wagenbach. Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion carried. Now we are back with approval of human resource consent agenda. Could I please have a motion to approve the human resource consent agenda?
This is Teresa. I move-
Okay.
I move to approve the human resources consent agenda as presented.
Very good. May I have a second, please?
Second, it's Wisdom.
Mr. Wisdom, any discussion? Roll call vote.
Holzhauser,
Aye.
Wisdom,
Aye.
Wagenbach,
Aye.
Humbles,
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Disharoon,
Aye.
Bluth.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you, Debbie. Approval of the closed session minutes. Could I please have a motion to approve the closed session minutes?
It's Wisdom.
is
I
Tim.
move to
I
approve the
move to
closed session.
approve the
Oh,
closed
please
session
go ahead.
minutes of the regular board meeting of March 8th. Sorry. So you go ahead. I think I have a delay when I speak.
Yes, yes,
So,
you do.
You go
Yes,
ahead.
you do. Well, you've already done it. So that was Karen. Let's have whoever wants to do the second.
Second by Bluth.
Very good. Roll
I
call
think-
vote, please.
I think we all voted.
Disharoon,
Aye.
Bluth,
Aye.
Wisdom,
Aye.
Wagenbach,
Aye.
Humbles,
Aye.
Holzhauser,
Aye.
Henry.
Aye.
Motion carried. Very good. All right. Well, that's it for, I guess, the open session. If we could go back to closed session. Teresa, could you please make that motion again?
Okay. I move to adjourn to closed session for the following purposes as stated in the Open Meetings Act. the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, student disciplinary cases, collective negotiating matters, discussions of minutes of meetings lawfully closed, purchase of lease of real property, security procedures, and litigation.
Very good. May I have a second, please?
Second, Ann.
Very good, Mrs. Henry. Thank you so much. Roll call vote, please. Although I don't think we need it, we'll just roll call vote.
Holshouser,
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Humbles,
Aye.
Wagenbach,
Aye.
Wisdom,
Aye.
Bluth,
Aye.
Disharum.
Aye.
Okay, so I guess you're going to send us a new invite, Mr. or Dr. Dearman?
Nope, everybody can just stay on the line and then I'll go